Welcome to the fifth and final Rhythm and Word in July. I'm Amy Pagliarella, one of the pastors here at Fourth Church, and it has been such a joy to walk with you this month. It's our final week discussing God's gift of the Sabbath, so I'd like to go back to where we started. When we hear the word Sabbath, many Christians and Jews immediately think of the Ten Commandments, where God first tells us to remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. But the commandments actually appear in the Bible again, and the second time is in Deuteronomy, where Moses reminds the Israelites what it means to live in God's way. So listen to what Moses says. The seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter, or your male or female slave, or your ox or your donkey, or any of your livestock, or the resident alien in your towns, so that your male and female slave may rest as well as you. Remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God brought you out from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, the Lord your God commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Remember that you were a slave. This last sentence occurs only in Deuteronomy. It's been added since we first heard God's commandments back in Exodus. So what does it mean for us and for our relationships with others? Well, Moses recalls that when the people were enslaved in Egypt, they had to produce. Their very survival depended on their ability to make bricks and deliver on Pharaoh's building requirements. They couldn't even take a day off for their own well-being, and they couldn't take a day off to worship God. There's a contemporary movement that has tapped into this, and they're seeking to reclaim Sabbath as a political act. One of those leading the charge is Tricia Hersey, founder of the NAP ministry. She's known as the NAP Bishop, and she believes in the liberatory power of rest. By creating space for rest and restoration, she helps people realize their own worth and tap into the divine. Her book, Rest is Resistance, is a manifesto, a call to action, or maybe inaction, as she encourages us to resist the grind culture, a culture that demands we use our hearts, minds, and bodies to produce. And when we stop producing at work, we are encouraged to consume. And this culture is so pervasive because it's lucrative. Companies make money when their workers work and consumers consume. We can accept this and even make peace with being a part of capitalism without letting it become the guiding force in our lives and work. Now, as I wrote these words early this morning, I had to laugh at myself. I sat at my computer, the sound of the dishwasher behind me and the washing machine upstairs. It was barely daylight, and I was already multitasking, doing laundry, pausing for an early morning phone call, all while writing about the need to stop forcing myself to produce. But grind culture is everywhere. It's hard to say enough. And for some, it might be impossible. If you're earning a minimum wage or relying on your many side hustles to get by, you might not feel like you can turn down opportunities to earn a little extra. I get that. It's real. But maybe you're financially secure, even retired, but you thrive on being busy or feel called to make a difference. Grind culture is everywhere, and it even pervades volunteer work and church life. So here's where you can tap into the wisdom of Dr. Shaniqua Walker Barnes. Dr. Shaniqua writes about sacred self-care. She believes that when we accept self-care as a divine right, we realize that we are beautifully and wonderfully created by God in God's own image and likeness. and this will lead us to better relationships with ourselves, our loved ones, and God. Here's what she suggests. First, identify our unhelpful thoughts and replace them with new affirmations that are true and helpful. For example, if you wake up each morning and your brain is already saying, I have to hurry up and get to work, I don't have time to pray or stretch or meditate, recognize that that thought is unhelpful and it's not serving you well. Could you replace it with a simple affirmation such as, time is God's plentiful gift to me? This won't magically give you a spa day, but perhaps it will allow you to see that you have the time to stretch and breathe. You can take a few extra moments in the shower, or that maybe you're entitled to sit and enjoy your breakfast rather than eating in the car. You can come back to this affirmation throughout the day whenever you feel anxious or stressed, and perhaps it will inspire you to block off longer spans of time on your calendar to rest in God's presence. We've been focusing on the final part of this commandment, that we rest from our work, to celebrate that God's people were once enslaved and were not permitted to rest. But the first part of the commandment is just as important. God tells us to pause in our work and to give others the space to rest as well. If we don't own an ox or donkey, we may just assume this doesn't apply to us, but let's assume that it does. Because all creation needs a break. If we have a position of power in our workplace, we can remember that God calls us to ensure that everyone who serves and works in our world needs a break. If we're a parent, God reminds us that our children also need respite from the busyness of grind culture. And our planet desperately needs a break from the energy, gas, and all the resources we consume when we're stuck in the grind. Sabbath is not just God's gift to me. It's God's gift to us and to all creation. So let's close our month back where we started. I invited you to accept God's invitation to Sabbath by remembering 3 vital truths. Can we replace the noise of grind culture with these simple affirmations? First, God is enough because God created the world and continues to sustain it. Second, you are enough. You are not what you do, what you produce, or what you earn. You are enough just as you are. And finally, we have enough. We don't have to consume anything during our Sabbath time, and we have all the time we need. Friends, thank you for spending your precious Sabbath time with me and with the glorious rhythm and word musicians. Go in peace.
Come back to me with all your heart. Don't let fear keep us apart. Trees do bend, though straight and tall. So must we to God's own call. Long have I waited for your coming home to me and living deeply our new life. The wilderness will lead you to your heart, where I will speak integrity and justice with tenderness. You shall know. Long have I waited for your coming home to me and living deeply our new life. you shall sleep secure with peace. Faithfulness will be your joy. Long have I waited for your coming home to me, and live